Not these. I do not see streaming in the group.
Okay. Let me try it again. Well, while we're doing this, let's get into it. Who's got some wins for the last, we weren't here last week, right? We were at the Dan Martell conference in Boston last week. So who's got some wins over the last 2 weeks? Who's got something that's working well for them that they want to share? Why that's not streaming?
Step right up.
Do we not have any winners? All right. I know Bryan Waddle will be, I know Bryan Waddle's got to win. We're going to be spotlighting Mr. Waddle here on this call, but I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. Jeff, while I'm trying,
go ahead.
Jeff, while I'm trying to figure out why this thing isn't streaming, what were some of your takeaways from spending those 3 days at the Dan Martell conference there in Boston?
Yeah, I mean, putting myself in the room with high-level players who are continuously looking to up-level their game and optimize everything they're doing, from buying back their time to bringing in new resources and tools and relationships, partnerships, all the way around. I mean, just being in the room with people like that is very motivating. And there's always wisdom in the room. They have these things called wisdom circles where we go around and talk about our challenges in each one of our businesses, and we share with each other what we, potential solutions that we have, or maybe we have something that could help. And I found a lot of value in that and got some really great resources to up level our game overall. So those are big takeaways for me, is just, continuously playing with, in the field with other people so that you can see how other people are winning. And that's what we try to do on these calls, is sharing, your wins, what's working for you, and play off of each other so that we can continuously up level each other and get better. So yeah, it's amazing to be able to travel that way. And like Patrick said, it's it's worth it to spend the money and to go and do those things, because that's where the best kind of relationships and opportunities come from. And they have in my lead gen career, if you want to call it whatever. I'm 4.5 years into this now, and I've been doing that ever since I started in the model. I started going to masterminds. That's how I met Patrick. That's how we started working together, after being in the room with him a half a dozen times or so, and then getting to know him, building a relationship, figuring out that we trust each other, we have complementary skill sets and all of these things. Like, you're never going to be able to do that just by, having a call with somebody or whatever. So super valuable. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, one of the takeaways I had was Marcel. So Marcel is he's got his own startup, and then he became one of the main coaches for SaaS Academy for Dan Martell. And we were, since the theme was about marketing, one of the big takeaways I had was his analogy of like being an inch wide and a mile deep, rather than a mile wide and an inch deep for your marketing strategies. So rather than, hey, I'm going to run Facebook ads, and I'm going to do SEO, and I'm going to run Google ads, and I'm going to speak at conferences, and all these other strategies that we have to try to bring in leads, regardless of whether it's a software business or your local agency. If you try to do too many things at once, you're not going to be great at any of them. That's what it came down to. Right. So what we're going to focus on, we made the decision, is, hey, we're going to really focus on partnerships and affiliates. That's all we're going to focus on. We're going to be an inch wide. So that's the inch wide that we're going to be, and we're going to go a mile deep in it. So what does that mean? That means that we don't put out our affiliate program without a lot of direction. Instead, we go really deep into it, and we make it easy for you guys. We give you guys the sales materials that you need, maybe coaching calls around that. We go a mile deep into these types of programs, right? And rather than having Jeff kind of reach out to different people on Facebook and all this other stuff, well, maybe Jeff is on LinkedIn trying to establish relationships with other big agencies and potential partnerships. So a lot of different ways that we can go a mile deep, but we were a mile wide. right? And that's hurt us. And I think a lot of you guys are doing this within your agencies where you've got 10 different strategies on how we can bring on new clients, and you're trying to focus on all 10 of those. So I don't know if you guys are following Dan on his Facebook, but today he had a video that said focus, and it says focus on, it was an acronym. It was like focus one course until success. That's the acronym for focus. So it was something like that, right? Not focusing on like 7 different things. So you hold on one second. My cat he's decided he wants to be a part of the meeting. Give me 1 second, guys.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, as visionaries, which I think a lot of us are. Oh, now he's coming out here. It's hard to just focus on one thing. And they had an exercise, I think it was Marcel who had the exercise. It's like, basically dialing in that one thing that you're going to focus on. And I could feel like a physical reaction. Like, I know this is the best advice I could get. I know this is going to give me the most traction, but it's like, how do I do that? It's like, it doesn't feel like it's in my DNA to do that. But a lot of times that's what we need to do. And that's going to give us the best traction to move forward in our business. So yeah, it's a process of learning and a practice of implementing these things over time so that we can take advantage of the strategy.
There's a reason that has that reaction for you, and probably some of you guys on this call that have chosen 5 or 6 different marketing channels don't want to hear this message, and you're not having the success that you want. It's like, it's recognition that we're making a mistake. And the reason that we've chosen to do things the way we are, the way we're doing them, is because we think that that's the best strategy. And then you have somebody who's on the other side of it that's like, hey, if you're doing it this way, which is what a lot of you guys are going to want to do, you're going to have this problem. And it's like, okay, this person's they've already solved the problem. So you can ignore it and go with what feels natural, which maybe isn't creating the results that you want, or you can pivot to somebody that's a little bit further down the road and listen to their advice and say, okay, I am going to make this commitment to do this. So I've got my notes. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to a conference, my hand hurts at the end because I take so many notes. Like, this is your opportunity to soak in this information. So I have 15 pages of notes, and I have my takeaways. One of the really cool strategies, I never thought of this. This is a brilliant strategy for, and I'm trying to tweak how we can work this for local Legion, but the idea of kind of like finding someone that's ranking for your keywords and then buying that link and then setting them up as an affiliate, where it's like, okay, this person's ranking for this. Maybe they're ranking for reputation management, but they're not necessarily a competitor. And then I say, hey, can you, like, if someone comes to our site, we'll automatically set you as an affiliate. That was really, I thought that was really powerful. What the partnership part is like, hey, make it easy and be super professional. Some of us, we get super, like with LeadSnap, I get super into the details on how I want things to work. And, it's never perfect, but why, when I go into it, like the affiliate program, I don't put in that same amount of care? Why am I expecting to have these amazing results for this halfway effort? Right. That was a takeaway for me. You guys probably have parts of your business that are that way, where it's like, we treat it like it's our, whatever, our third cousin instead of part of our family. And then we get third cousin results instead of the stuff. We haven't put in the same amount of effort. Right. So for me, that was a big thing. Really, one of the things that I've noticed in this idea of going a mile deep and an inch wide, I felt like it was so limiting when I heard it. And there was like 3 or 4 steps that you have. And then once you complete the 4th step, then you can go into another channel. Right. So when they explain the process of like, okay, you got to figure this out, and then you got to systematize it, you got to test it. And then at that point, you can go on to the next one. Right. So it's not limiting. What it means is like, systematize what you're focused on. And once you get it to that point, then move on to the next one. Don't try to do another one until you've got this thing completely dialed in. Right. So for me, that sounded like, once it was explained that way, I realized, oh, this is actually an opportunity. I just got to get to step 4. Once I get to step 4, I can go on to a new one. And then I can have a second channel that's bringing in business. But if I have everything at step 2 and everything's like half baked, then like, I'm not going to get results in anything. I'm just wasting my time. It's almost worse to spend the time doing something that's unfinished, because not only have you lost that time, but you don't have the benefit from it either, right? So spending that time to actually get it. And I see how Dan Martell does this, everything. You know, he's launching this coaching program. Before, all his coaching was just for software founders, but now he's teaching like some business coaching. And Spencer had reached out to me and said, hey, you know, I'm in these different programs. Should I join Dan Martell's? And I think Dan Martell, it's the best coaching I've ever received. Right. So, but I said, hey, you're in these other programs. He's going to be trying to do too many things at once. I know that Dan is going to systematize this, and it's going to be amazing when he gets it done, because that's just how he does everything. He's going to come in, figure out exactly what he needs to do to help this new business that he's launching. Essentially, he's going to systematize it, and then he's going to move on to another one. Right now, I think for the next 2 weeks, he is on a yacht in Croatia, right? He owns all these different businesses. And the reason that he's able to do that is because he systematized it, and then he moved on to the next one. He finds the best people that he can, puts them in that place, and then he moves on to the next one. We do things, I think there's a lot of us that have things that are half-baked, and then we never get that opportunity to move on. So that's why we got to go a mile deep and an inch wide. So those were some of my biggest takeaways. Dan Martell, his speech about podcasts and getting on the podcast, right? Jeff, you were there for that, of like, he told this story about how when he was, you know, he launched his book. And for those of you guys who don't know, I think he's been second on the bestseller list for pretty much since it launched. He sold 25,000 copies of his book the first week, right? How did he do it so successful? Well, a lot of it for him was podcast. And that's something that we can all do. Pretty much in every niche that you guys are in, every industry, there's podcasts that are in there. So if you deliver the message to request the podcast in the right way, there's no reason why you guys can't get on. Imagine you're in painting, you're in the painting niche, you're working with painters. There's a podcast that works with home contractors and painters. What would it mean for you if you had the opportunity to get in front of these painters and position yourself as an authority? Hey, we specialize in marketing for painters, and we've done it all over. Here's the main struggles that painters do from a marketing standpoint. How do we get those opportunities? Dan told this funny story where he reached out during this book promotion time period, and he said, hey, can I get on your guys' podcast? I'd love to do a talk. And they responded with one word: why? And there, you know, in his head, he's like, how egotistical am I to just, you know, he was like thinking, hey, can we get a resume? Can you look at my email signature? This is Dan Martell. Of course you want me. But he's like, no, you've got to sell the reason on why. What are the questions that you can ask me? What value are you going to provide? So he gave us a whole script on how we can set up outreach. And he recommended, hey, do 5 per day. Come up with a list of 200 podcasts that maybe you want to be on, and set up that outreach, get that process going. So that was huge, because that's how you that's how you fish with dynamite, right? Instead of just having the one. A lot of you guys are struggling because you just got one line in the water, right? So how do we work on a process and go really deep with the process that's has the potential to land us a bunch of clients, right? So that was another big takeaway for me. Jeff, like you said, the wisdom circles are always great. That's our opportunity, and we're going to do these at our event. So we're going to break into small groups, 4 or 5 people. We're going to try to set people up based on where they are in their business, and then have these wisdom circles where, like, hey, what are you struggling with? How did that work? This is an amazing opportunity, because usually there's 5 people that are, let's say you're at like $40,000 a month. There's 5 people at $40,000 a month. Oftentimes you're going to have, there's solutions to problems have been solved by other people that are in that same spot, right? Or $10,000 a month, right? So giving you guys that opportunity to network, that's huge. I love those, just like you do, Jeff. The guy who created, throw a 1 in the chat if you guys have heard of Wistia. So huge video platform. They compete with Vimeo. So the CEO and founder of Wistia came and spoke to us. This guy's 39 years old. That's how old the guy is. That Wistia's been around for 17 years. They raised $17 million they actually went, my understanding is they had been public, and then they had $17 million, and they bought back their investors. So they returned to be private. So hearing the founder of Wistia talk about 39-year-old. I don't know what he's worth, but I would guess that he's in the high 9 figures or the mid 9 figures with his business. Wistia is huge. So being able to and I sat and talked with him for 10 minutes. So getting yourself in situations like this is amazing, to be around 39-year-old in that spot. And they've been there for a long time. I think, he was probably in 9 figures when he turned 30, so, having that type of mindset and being exposed to those people, it's hard to not pick something up. As I said at my last event, a lot of times what you get from these events is what's caught, what's not taught, right? What happens in between the lectures. So a ton of those things. All right. Before we go into it, I'm going to interview Bryan Waddle today. I want to hear, Bryan, from where you were to where you are. There you go. So Wistia revenue, 39 million in 2022. That's a lot, right? So do that for 17 years. And, maybe that's their peak. So they weren't always there, but, it's amazing to be around these type of people that have that type of business, So any other wins before we jump into it with Bryan? All right. I'm not seeing anything. Bryan Waddle, what's up,
Patrick,
man?
how are you?
Good, man. I'm going to put this focus on you. I want to hear a little bit about your background, Bryan. Tell me, where'd you come from?
Well, of course, as you can tell from my accent, I'm not from up north. So I was born here in Texas in a little town called McKinney, and actually lived the first 10 years of my life in Frisco, Texas. Frisco's over 1 million people. I'm sure somebody on here either has a lead gen site or they know somebody who has one in Frisco. That seems to be a mecca for everybody who want to put one there. When I left, it had 1,300 people in it. And we moved to Denton when I was 10 years old. I grew up around the construction equipment business, farm equipment. When my dad started his Ford trash dealership here in Denton, we were at he was at 80% ag and 20% industrial. And when he sold it, he was at 90% industrial and 10% ag. That's how much the world that our area had changed with DFW growing. We're 40 miles north of Dallas. So
right. And then you ended up going in and selling equipment. If we kind of fast forward down the trail a little bit, you ended up, prior to getting into lead gen, I think you were selling this really expensive equipment to people all over the country and maybe in other countries as well. Is that right?
Yep, I've sold equipment on every continent in the world. But yes, that's correct. I started with him in 2000, and he said we can't eat out of his term was we can't eat out of the same bowl. And I said, okay. I said, I'll try the internet. And I had my 14-year-old nephew build a website. We spent Thanksgiving weekend of that year building the website. We had it up by Christmas, and on the day after Christmas, a guy came in from Georgia and bought a trailer load full of equipment. So
immediate
that was my
success
first
with
win.
this.
Yep.
Yeah. But then after a while, you kind of got that essentially was lead gen, but was that for your own company?
Yep, I was one of the first independent equipment dealers that had an internet page.
Right.
And yeah, so fast forward 2019, I started looking for something else to do. I'd been hurt. I had heard of having multi streams of income, and I called a guy that had done some website work for me and asked him, hey, I'd like to do e-commerce. And he said, no. He said, hold on. He said, I've got a program coming up that I think you might be interested in. And I said, well, okay. And a couple of weeks later, he called. He was starting a training program for lead gen. And that's how I was introduced to it.
Right. And that, just to be clear, that was not my program. That was not this, right?
No.
You had bounced around with this person. You'd bounced around with them for a few years. Is that right?
Well, I had probably been through me and Spencer followed near the same path. So I would say probably 3 other programs before we got in yours. Yeah.
Okay. So you joined our program, and this isn't a pitch for our program, just to be clear, but I just want to set the time frame. I think we launched our program kind of the last week of February or the second, like 10 days. And at that point, where were you at in your lead gen career? Like, what were you financially at? What was your monthly recurring revenue?
Oh, it was, gosh, it was probably 3,500. Or excuse me, let me
3,500.
back up. No, let me back up. 2,500.
Okay.
And one guy he stays 2 months behind. So it wasn't
Yeah.
real steady.
Right. And after being in for a couple years, it can be pretty discouraging if you're Bryan, I know that you're someone that tries, because I've seen it in action now that we're kind of working a little bit more hand in hand, right?
Right.
So it had to be pretty frustrating to spend all that time and then get to $2,500. I mean, that's $2,500 is $30,000 a year, right? It's nothing to discredit, but it's hard to live off of that, and especially and enjoy your life coming from selling this expensive equipment to $2,500 a month, where the person isn't always paying on time. It's somewhat unpredictable, right?
Oh, yeah. And February 1st, I actually closed my equipment business to go to this full time.
That's a big decision, only being at 2,500.
Yeah, but I had to. I mean, I was going to, this is more of a future. I won't go into all of it with the construction equipment business right now, but I just see a better future here. Plus, it's not just the money. I enjoy building stuff. I enjoyed building my last business. And I'm looking forward to, to building this. And, when you get to that point, I'm kind of at the point right now where I need to be. If I didn't have a house and I was living in an apartment, I'd probably be on a friend's couch, that type of entrepreneur, and that's kind of a fun feeling, because you're on the right track. When it's a little bit hard, it's not coming easy, then I feel like you're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wish you would have told me, Bryan. I mean, we have a really comfortable big couch here, but I guess it's necessary. Like, we worked through that. So Bryan, where are you now? So let's fast forward. So it's been 4 months, really not even 4 months. Where are we at now from a monthly recurring revenue?
Gosh. Well, I mean, whenever, obviously it doesn't come in, right away, but from when I closed in May, and we get to hitting on all those cylinders, and what I've closed this month, we're probably close to
20,000.
Yeah.
We've had about an 8x in the last 4 months.
Yep.
And then I know, and I don't know if you want to get into the details of this, but you had shared something. If you don't, totally fine. You had shared an opportunity that's kind of like, we're not solidified yet, but phenomenal opportunity at your fingertips. Are you at liberty to discuss that? And if not, that's fine.
No, I'd like to discuss it, but I'll let you ask the questions about it.
Okay. So tell me about this deal. What's the number on this deal that you're working on right now?
I don't quite have a dollar figure, but it would be at least for what I've been looking at, it would be at least 50 GMBs related to the niche I'm in. It could be areas where we would put a website with the GMBs. And I mean, obviously if let's say you take an area and you rent the website for 1,500 and then the GMBs around it for 500, that you do 10 of those, you have 10 areas. That's a pretty big chunk of change.
Right.
And the company I'm talking with, they're a national company, and they want to expand. They're working with another agency and using email marketing. So they're open to doing this. And I do want to say it's not a person that's a random lead that I just stumbled upon. He and I have been talking. I'm going to guess I've been talking to him probably a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a guy that called, and you need to answer your phones on Saturdays, because it was Saturday afternoon around 4 o'clock, and he called and we spent 2 hours talking 2 years ago. And we've had several conversations since then. And he's going to try a site in the next few weeks once I get it up, and we're going to see how it does. And we're going to try an area, and he's going to pay for it, of course. But If it goes well, if he can see the potential, then we'll grow from there.
Right.
How big
right.
of an area is he gonna go into to start out? Like one site, 3 GMBs, or like a whole region, or
It
how's
would, I mean, it would a whole region, like up around, like the area in North Carolina where Charlotte, Greenville, Raleigh, I guess all is, that's considered a region. Dallas, Fort Worth is considered a region, areas like that, whole states, such as, Mississippi, he's gonna have, he wants to market there. That would be but 2 or 3 GMBs that still cover a whole state. And also Phoenix, he's looking at.
That's awesome.
A lot of big regions here. And Bryan, I know that you're in our program, and I imagine that you're leveraging the offer that we've prepared. And I know that, like, hey, if we're going into Dallas area here, based on the niche and the competition level, covering like that whole Dallas, Arlington, Fort Worth, Plano area. I mean, I think there's like 6, 7, 8 million people that are in that whole area. So I know if I wouldn't be going into that area, and covering all those things. If I'm really delivering in there, it's going to be $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 a month just for that one region. Do you agree? And your client's kind of on the same page, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
So this sounds like it has the potential to be a client that, hey, maybe this could be $30,000 or $40,000, $50,000 a month that's coming through for this one client. Is that how you're seeing it as well?
Yep. I've just had it in my head looking at the map that he sent me. It could be 50,000, and we even talked about that yesterday. I was on the phone with him. And I said, this could be 50,000 up. He said, oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's great when, like, he's obviously
prepared for it.
I'm sorry?
He's prepared for it.
Right.
I'm not.
Most of the, well, it's you're a long way away from being at $2,500 a month. We've kind of like swam into some deeper waters, but
we're drowning. But anyway, no,
well,
in a good way.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we bite off more than we can chew, or more than we think we can chew. And it takes us a little while to get the processes and stuff in place. But hey, this didn't come, you don't luck your way into a relationship like this. This comes, the reason that you get this opportunity is because you have some sort of history. And you had mentioned, hey, I've spent 1.5 years or so building this relationship. Does this client have existing leads coming in from you already?
No. Everyone that he's kind of been late to the party. I did offer him a site that I had in Birmingham, Alabama that's doing really good, and he's regretting not taking that. But the way that he operates, everything's got his system has got to be able to match what the area to do what that site's doing. His system has to match, and it wasn't ready to make that match.
Yeah, we have a client like this in our agency that we have that, they're like a national distributor for a product that's essential within our niche. And, it's been amazing. It helped us grow a ton by this person says, or we say, hey, we've got stuff coming in this city. And they're like, okay, give me like a week or two and I'll get someone in position for you lined up. So those relationships are amazing. And it really takes a lot of the sales process out of this. And you kind of start to get this flywheel too. What happens is when you niche down, like I know the niche that Bryan's in, and for a lot of these niches, when you get results for one client, then as long as they're referring to someone that's not their like someone in the same industry, someone in the same niche that's in a different city, they're happy to refer it. They all know each other, right? They go to, just like we're recommending you guys do, they go to conferences, they go to trade shows, industry shows, stuff like this. They create friendships. They see each other year in and year out. They say, what's working for you? Well, we've got Bryan here is doing this really thing. I mentioned this story in the past. We had a client that came, or a potential client that came to us, and said, hey, I was referred to you guys. I heard you guys are great in this niche. And they're like, yep, appreciate it. Here's what we do. Here's the cost. Whoa, that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. Hey, I understand. What we do is not for everyone. So she comes back a couple months later and she said, I asked for 9 referrals, people all over the country. You guys were referred 6 times. So 6 out of entire country of marketing agencies, but we're really big in our niche. And, she's asking high-level people within that niche for the referrals. And that's what happens. You start to get this stuff, and that's where that kind of flywheel effect. So now that we have this, you guys, I personally believe that landing the client and finding the right client that's the hard part. After that, we can just execute our playbook on how we can apply the rankings. I know that can be scary for you, Bryan, but hey, you're in good company. We got a lot of people that can teach you this stuff.
But let me interject something there. That's if you could take one lesson in the very beginning, I think out of no matter what group you're in, but learn how to qualify your clients. And in the beginning, and that's hard to do in the beginning because you're hungry, you're wanting to sell, you're wanting to make money. But when I really started turning the corner for me was when I started qualifying the clients. Even before I picked up the phone, I got as much information as I could for them. But in my niche, I can look at some different things that I'm familiar with that a lot of people don't have the same. They don't have the same experiences. For instance, I can look at their equipment on their website. I can look on their Facebook, see what type of jobs they're getting, and I can get in my mind, hey, yeah, this company's doing good. They can afford me. Or, hey, I can see my phone that I may need to be prepared on the phone call to say no. No, we're not a good fit, and that's okay. The hardest thing to learn is to say no and to listen and really understand their challenges or problems.
It sounds like some of your previous, like selling the equipment has, you're not in there selling the equipment, but it kind of, all these companies that you're working with, you have some industry knowledge from that past experience, right?
Oh yeah. And that's helped a lot. Plus, when I was before I was 10 years old, my dad had he worked for a road machinery company, and he traveled 15 counties in West Texas, and I rode with him, and I met these met aggregate contractors, and so I kind of learned about how they talked, and I learned their language and their and their mannerisms and and stuff like that. And I'm also in tune with what they're comfortable talking about. Like, for instance, I don't ever use the word leads with them at all. It's all jobs, because that's how they refer to their work. They refer it all to jobs. They don't want to hear the word leads. I was talking to a friend of mine who's in the painting niche, and that's all they're concerned with is leads. So you need to figure out your niche. You need to figure out your niche's language a little bit, and that will help you solve some of their problems or challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a big proponent of pushing this to niche down. And this is exactly the reasons why is you start to understand all the there's so many different nuances within every niche. And when you can talk the talk and you can relate to them, you understand the challenges that they're having, you understand the types of jobs, the machines, the language that they use. People want to work with people that they can relate to. And if you are showing up and you're talking about like backlinks and citations and stuff like this, it's like this person is maybe like a concrete worker, or they cut trees, or they fix air conditioners. They don't care about any of that stuff. You've got to be able to talk their language. What's the actual, instead of selling the features of your program, such as like, we're going to get this backlinks, these pages, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do to make their life better? Like, hey, we want to bring you, what would it look like to bring you 9 more jobs per month? Right. And like,
right.
if we know, I know in your industry that the average job is worth $6,000. So if I brought you 9 more jobs a month, we could potentially increase your monthly recurring revenue, or your revenue, by $54,000. that's something that resonates with them, right? Some of this other stuff, we mention it because we have to provide certainty that we're the expert. But the challenge and what always works really well in sales is if you can communicate in a way that people are going to simplify it so that they can understand you. A lot of analogies, stories, stuff like that reference this. So Bryan, let's change the direction just a little bit. Let's go back. What would you tell yourself if from where you are now, if you could go back and talk to Bryan Waddle at the beginning of February, what were you doing wrong? And what's different now that's allowed you to be successful this way?
Myself, and I can thank Jeff Howe for that. Before we even went to Florida, he had invited me to this event every month in Houston. In Austin, called the Internet Marketing Party, and it's an event that's. I think Jeff would agree. Anything internet is there. Anything you can think of business wise is there.
Yeah.
So I started going to it, and of course, I've always wondered if you added up the net worth in the room, sometimes what it would be. I think it would shock us. But anyway, I started going there, and it kind of helped me kind of start being around people more. In the equipment business, the difference is I advertised my equipment, and people called me, they were coming to me. Whereas now the role's been reversed. I'm taking my product, to them. And that was a big change. And I've always, my dad offered me a draw. And for those you know what that is, that means a little bit of money until you make your quota, so you get commission. Some companies will give you what's called a draw. And so I took that 1 month, and I was always very proud of that. And then back in the day, I worked for another company, and I won every sales contest they had there. So before I went to Florida, when I got to Florida, I was really frustrated. Depressed, frustrated, because I really wanted to succeed. I had some personal reasons from last year that I was making. My life had really changed, and I really wanted to be successful. So kind of fast forward a few events, and I go down there for an event, and I think it was in April. Maybe it was the May one, but I didn't want to go. And but my wife said, "Oh, you get so much out of it. You're happier when you come back." So I went, and it wasn't necessarily the speaker that night, but I walked around with Jeff, and we were talking to people, and I just all of a sudden got real comfortable. And I would talk to somebody, and we'd keep talking, and things started to hit again. So the next day I'm on my way home, and I think it finally hit me. I wasn't being myself. And I think I even pulled over and sent Jeff the message, "Hey Jeff, I think I just discovered something from last night. Hey, I'm not being myself." You just, with these people, with these prospects, you're just, you have to realize you're just having a conversation. And when you're yourself, you come across a lot more genuine. All of us can't pick up the same script and be Patrick or be Spencer or Thomas. We all have different personalities. We look different. Our facial expressions are different. We have to be ourselves. And that was the big turning point for me, was to start being myself. And the other thing was to realize I'm not asking these people to go on a date. You mostly got to look at it from an engineer standpoint. Your organization is a machine, and it takes every part to run that machine. And those customers or these clients are one part in that machine. And so to keep that machine going, if that part doesn't work, you've got to go find one. So just look at it like that, and don't get so caught up if somebody hangs up on the phone, if somebody doesn't follow back up with you. The other thing I've learned is patience with clients. And I want to share this because I kind of learned it the hard way when I was too enthusiastic. So I would, call and call them, just trying to show I hustled. And one guy, I lost 2 deals because of, I know that's why I lost them. You live and you learn. Another guy, that I'd talked to, all of a sudden he quit answering. He didn't answer the text. But he didn't seem like that type of guy at all. I even wrote a text to him and said, hey, you don't seem like the kind of guy that would ghost me. Let me know what's going on. And so I didn't call him for like, I guess I hadn't talked to him in probably 5 weeks. And so yesterday I just picked up the phone and called him and said, hey, I hadn't heard from you. He said, oh, Bryan, I'm so glad you called. He said, I had a wreck and I was rear-ended. It flipped my truck over. I've been in the hospital, most of that time. So we don't know what's going on in people's lives. So I would say, just keep keep trying to contact your prospects, but have patience with them, just like you'd want them to have patience with you.
That's awesome, Bryan. Yeah. And just so what I'm getting out of everything you're saying, Bryan, is that you're taking action, right? So you're taking action, you're figuring out what's not working in either your process or your mentality, and you're consistently exploring the edges of that, the edges of your comfort zone, and moving forward. So
Yeah.
he didn't even mention that, like where he lives in Denton and where the event is in Austin. How far is that, Bryan?
3.5, 4 hour drive.
So he's driving 3.5, 4 hours to go to this event, and he gets a hotel room so he doesn't have to drive home that night, and then driving 3.5, 4 hours home the next day, because he sees the value in this basically like 2-3 hour event to come down there and rub elbows with all these people. I mean, this is like the premier internet, digital marketing event anywhere in Texas, I would think, maybe even
the United States. I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's like 100 plus people there usually. It's they have sponsors, all the drinks are free and everything. It's like, what is it now, $40 to get in or something?
Yeah.
But he's taking the action, he's buying the gas, he's getting the hotel room, and he's going there month after month. He's been there more than I have now, probably, because I've been traveling, I've missed it. And he's taking the action to get in the room with these people, and he's uncovering what's in his way, because he's out there like expanding and leaning into the edges, trying to figure it out. And this is making a big difference. So I commend you, Bryan, for taking the action and for showing up. It's been great to spend time with you there in that room when I'm in town, and to get, we have conversations with other people together, and it's awesome to be able to do that. And yeah.
And you get at places like that, and truly successful people are used, and by that I mean they have happiness with their success, and if they're truly happy and they've done it the right way, they're happy to share how they did it. And you can learn.
That's true. There's no scarcity. It's all abundant. It's just, everybody's in a state of abundance, and they're willing to share. And that's the same rooms that Patrick and I are getting in with these programs and masterminds that we're going to. It's like everybody's there because they want to share, so they know that other people are going to share, or they have that expectation that other people are going to share. And then that becomes the reality, right?
Yep. Exactly.
I can add a couple of things, Jeff and Bryan. Sorry if I'm interrupting you.
Oh, it's okay.
I just wanted, to put my 2 cents here. I met Bryan at the last event.
Yep.
Florida. I tell you one thing, right? We were there for 3 days or 4 days, right? And he was a completely different guy when he left that mastermind, because he was like completely changed. He was all excited. He got information. He got inspiration from others. And it was such a great pleasure, to hang out with him. So, and congrats to you, Bryan. I'm so very happy.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah,
thank you.
To see that progress you made within 3-4 months.
Yep.
So this is just awesome, and I can't wait to see you in a month or so too.
I can't either. Yep.
Time with you, get more ideas, share my experiences, you share your experiences, and that's how we get ahead.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
we all have each other on speed dial too, right? It's like if I drop Vadim a message today or tomorrow, hey, he's going to get back to me if I have a question or whatever, and Bryan and Vadim can play off of each other that way too. It's like there's a mutual trust and respect that comes out of those experiences that allow you to have a level of contact with people where they are going to open up and share if you need help.
Well, and the other thing is, and the other thing I think that is like when you come from that and you're going to your next one, you can use that as a book, as a check mark. For instance, I don't want to go there and there's a couple of people that followed up with me from there that, called with advice, called with experiences. One in particular was Dan Brown, really reached out to me, and it motivates you to keep doing better, because the last thing you want to do is, at least in one of the things I thought about in the first part of May, when I really decided, when it started finally clicking, I didn't want to show back up in Florida at the end of January and say, Adam or Dan, well, what have you done, Bryan? Well, I haven't done, well, I've got one account, or, I wanted to show that I wanted to show those guys I made progress. And,
well, you got that going for you. You're making
you also,
progress.
and you also find people in the group that you can kind of look to and you can kind of compete against. I mean, I'm always, letting Spencer know, hey, I can see you're, like yesterday I told him, hey, I may not have caught you yet, but I can see your tail lights. And he got a big kick out of that.
Yeah,
Good sport.
Yeah. But by the same token, if something happened, you say you bragged too soon on a deal, you could also tell him what happened, and he's not going to say, hey, I told you so. Not to count your chickens before they hatch or something. He's going to encourage you to keep going. And that's a good thing too.
Yeah. There was a question in the chat, Bryan, on your deal. Are you doing lead gen, rank and rents style, or SEO?
Lead gen, they've got their in-house SEO. I wouldn't want to, no, they wouldn't want me doing their SEO. And I also wouldn't try to farm it out. It would be too big of a project.
Yeah.
And the other thing with him is that I've noticed, I've let him know what my limitations are instead of trying to portray something that I'm not with him. That I do have a limited staff or resources or whatever. And I think when you kind of develop that rapport, you can help each other with a client. You're really a team, and you can help each other succeed. So anyway.
That's great, Bryan. It's awesome. I agree with Vadim. Seeing you, the way you walked into that event and how you left, I agree. You kind of seem like a different person. You seem like you were whole like just your whole body language and like things, you could tell that you have been processing things, and we've had our moments over the last few months. I know a few weeks after the event, there was some struggles, and I recommended a book, and like my perspective is you were like a confidence boost away from really turning the corner, and it sounds like you've found that, which is amazing. And now we can build on it. Now you've got clients, right? This whole we're not sure what's going to happen, and I don't know if I can, like, a lot of those questions have been answered because you've done it. We know the business. You got $20,000 a month coming in lead gen, where we're that's a huge difference from 2,500 being stuck for 4 years to get to 2,500, then going from 2,500 to 20,000 in 4 months. Amazing. So it looks like we got Aiden here. Aiden's got a question for you, maybe, or someone. Aiden has a question. We know that. What do you got, Aiden?
Yeah. Sorry. Bryan, nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing. So you said that you do lead gen, but some of your clients do their own in-house SEO. So you still are not taking over all of their marketing via your own lead gen efforts, but you're providing them with lead gen, but they still do their own SEO. Is that what you're saying?
Well, this particular company does.
Okay.
And it's the only company I have that has an in-house SEO that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't take over this company's SEO unless I had a partner that really knew what they were doing. That
because they have a full nationwide presence, right? I mean,
yes,
that would be huge to take that off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm seeking partnerships in the LeadSnap group, and some of the people who I'm actually partnering with have a lot more SEO background than me, so that's good. Like I focus more on sales and utilizing LeadSnap and that part, and then the other people have some of them have ranked the sites and they've done a good job, so that's good. When you said that, that component resonated with me a bit. Like some people had different skill sets just within this specific industry.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to get a partner on deals. Don't be, don't step over dollars to pick up nickels and dimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the strategies, for years, what we have taught and what we have built up has been strictly lead gen. And I think that's an amazing business model. I think with a lot of the changes that have happened inside of Google in the last like 12 to 18 months, some of these aspects have become harder. I'm in, not only am I in the Dan Martell mastermind, I'm also in another one for kind of high level agency owners. And most of these people that are running these high level agencies, they've gotten there and they've never really heard of lead gen. And I think that they strictly just sell SEO services and they've had tremendous success. There's like tons of 7-figure agencies that are a part of these of that group. And I honestly think the best strategy is not to just do SEO services and not to do just strictly lead gen. This is the offer that I've taught to Bryan. Sounds like Bryan's mostly focused on lead gen and I wouldn't recommend doing SEO for that company that, and it's a national brand. That's a big SEO project to take over, and they've already got an in-house company. But for people that don't fit that mold, blending the two together, because when you just do lead gen and it's 100% based on leads, you got a little bit of a target on your back, right? If you lose a Google My Business, then it's like there's a good potential you're going to get fired unless you have multiple GMBs, which is what I always say to do. And another thing is, like, when we get started with a new client, it's really hard to stand stuff up. If we're just doing strictly lead gen, how many of you guys, throw in the chat if you've been in this for a little while and you're 3 months in, you've landed a client, you're 3 months in, strictly lead gen, and the client's like, hey, I'm not getting any leads. Does that resonate with any of you guys?
It did.
Yeah. So that happened to you, Bryan?
No, it did. And there was a question in the chat I was looking at here. What did you do to go from 2,500 to 20,000? Well, one thing is I asked for a lot more. I sell Google ads with these companies. And if you sell that right and you've got a good source or you're real good at Google ads, that's an easy sell. They're going to get, if you've done your research, everything, they're going to get leads right away. So you can offer, what I've done with that is you can offer the Google ads, and then I have that same customer who doesn't get Google ads come back and say, hey, why I'm not getting leads yet. When are you going to have that site up? Well, I told you that I would have, for instance, in part of my offer now, if they'll do the Google ads, I'll waive the setup fee. And that's worked out really well because I get them hooked into my process then. And the lead gen site is, I can take my time in a way and do it right and rank it and still get them results.
Just kind of take some of the heat off your back to have some business coming in from the ads. Are you the one that's actually managing the ads, or did you outsource that?
Oh,
Bryan?
no, I outsource things.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't. I'll tell everyone, I get a $1,500. I get a $1,500 management fee myself. I charge $3,500 minimum for my Google ad package. And that would be for an area, for example, I'm going to have to use a city here in Texas, but if I were going to do it in Tyler, Texas, which is a small city here in Texas, it'd be $3,500. I talked to a client up in Boston, and I hit him I said, it's going to cost you to $5,000 or $6,000 a month, and he didn't blink. And I'm still working to close that with him.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
Bryan-
the goal is, okay,
I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
But the good thing about that, you can set the ad spend, and if will pay the ad spend yourself, and you run the campaign right, obviously the ad spend comes down. You can still make a little bit more money there too. So that's another way to look at the profit. You also don't want them to be able to get in the account, because when I talked to a person who had done this, the warning they had was, hey, you had them send the ad spend to you, because if they can get to that account, they can try and copy the landing page, and then a lot of them will, shut it down one day and you won't even know it, and you're left high and dry. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Patrick.
No, I totally, I was just focused on what you're saying now, and I forgot what I was going to ask you. So, it's good. So Bryan, you are basically going and just handling the sales, and then you're outsourcing this stuff. And the offer that we have talked about for some of your other clients is we can take the target off our back by doing the SEO for them. It's what I call the all-weather offer, right? Where we can show some early results by doing the Google ads. That was a part of the offer, is like, hey, you can sell an ad service, but you're not doing the ads. And then you can show value at the beginning with, hey, this is what we've done for your website, right? When you're building out your own websites because you're doing lead gen, what's the value you show in the first 3 months, right? How are you going to show that value? So with this strategy of selling the ads, doing some SEO for their stuff, potentially rebuilding their site, you can have these, you can take that target off your back in the first 3 months, 4 months, however long it takes. You start to get some leads coming in. We can still work on their site. And now they've got more than one thing to judge what they're paying for on. But if it's just lead gen and you don't deliver leads, they're probably not going to pay the 4th month. That seems to be that transitional month, is after like month 3, if no leads have come in, even though we understand that. And when they sign up, we try to explain to them, hey, this can take a while. I don't tell my clients that I'm going to have like the leads coming in 3 months. That hasn't been my experience. I know that a lot of SEO companies say that. It seems to be some like unwritten thing, but I'll tell you, a lot of times it takes 6 months, right? So it can be hard, especially, 5 or 6 years ago, most people weren't as focused on reviews as they are now, which, like, now that companies are so cognizant of the fact that reviews help, it can be harder in some of these markets. You follow some of the training that we've taught on how to identify weak markets, this becomes not such a factor. But as you start to get a lot of referrals, then you're getting pushed into some of these markets. So saying like, hey, in 3 months, we're going to have this thing ranking, it just seems unrealistic to me. It seems like it's going to take longer than that a lot of times. Like, some of these companies have been around for 10 years, right? Maybe they've got links from other strong sites. They've got 50 reviews, 100 reviews. So like, are we going to be able to get our Google My Business set up and get 50 reviews, get all these pages built out? Like, maybe 3 months isn't realistic a lot of time, but when you have these other things that you can show value, then it can really reduce our churn and help us keep the client happy until we make the client really excited with all the business that we're bringing them. So Bryan, I really appreciate you spending your time here and coming on and sharing. Hopefully you guys got some inspiration. I see there's a couple more questions. Thomas has a question. One more question. Do you sell single leads, lead packages, or get a revenue share? What do you do, Bryan?
I sell a flat fee, period. I don't have to hold a gun to my head for me to do revenue share or commission. It does not work. I mean, sooner or later, after they write you a $10,000 check, they're going to find some way to get out of it. It's just not worth it. And also, when I turned my lead gen site over to the customer, it's their decision as what jobs they want to take off of it. I'm not going to listen to the calls and go and try to sell a job that they don't want. I suggest to them, for instance, if they don't want to do driveways or a real small job, I suggest to them to call to have a referral for the customer if they're from that area. That's just goodwill. I learned that in the equipment business. If somebody called for something I didn't have it, I would refer them to where to go, not charge anybody a commission. And a year or two later, a lot of times I would get a call from that same person, say, hey, you talked to me a year ago and helped me out, and I'm looking for so and so now. And so it's just good, you know, if you keep your clients informed about things to do. Most of those clients aren't like us. They are not out seeking knowledge of how to, you know, learn what the latest trend is, how to sell, make a presentation. Just give them little things to help them that might make a difference in their business, and they'll, you know, that adds value to keeping you around.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Bryan. It looks like Aiden has another question there. Aiden, what do you got, man?
Yeah, sorry for asking another question.
No, all good,
that's
man.
okay.
No. So, Bryan, you use LeadSnap, right?
Yep.
To all of your, okay. So when you get a new client and you prospect, do you still do leads in advance? Or do you do more just general cold calling?
I'm doing
outreach?
pre-selling now. I'm not,
Okay, yeah.
I've got a few sites that I'm trying to get. I've got a couple of new sites going up
Yep.
that I might have to do that. They're new sites, but most of the time right now I'm so busy trying to pre-sell that I just don't have the time to put my guy to work on, you know, building up, you know, a bunch of sites. I would like to.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
like to. I think a good idea is for like you to put up 10 sites and in some areas that that you could do that. I don't discourage it, but it just the way things have turned for me, and I'm sorry to be such a long-winded answer, it's just not practical right now.
No, of course. When you started out, how did you get your first few clients? Was it more just word of mouth and referrals? Was it kind of what other people maybe like Patrick teach, where you give a few leads in advance and then go from there to close them? Or
Both of them, I had the websites. The ones that when I went to Florida, the websites, I had those up. And one of them was just off of a Facebook ad, and the other one was a cold call. And I remember the contractor who took it was out on the job, and he gave me the number of his right-hand guy. And I knew that the contractor wasn't interested, he was just trying to push me off. So I called the right-hand guy, and we talked. And 2 weeks later, the right-hand guy was leaving the company. He wanted me to go with him. And that's how, thank goodness. And that's how, and he didn't even own a machine to be able to do the work when we started together. I was giving him leads, and he was having to rent the equipment to go do the job.
Yep.
So there's all sorts of ways it does. I mean, you have to you just have to be ready, just be looking for every opportunity. I kind of compare it to, I will say this, the other thing that helped me was sticking to my game plan. You know, sticking to my system has worked. When I deviate, I found out, and you will too, when you get your system, you'll do it, then you'll want to change it. I'm talking about your sales process. When you stick to your game plan, you'll be more successful. And if you look at one example, I always say I don't have any ballerina examples, but you think about the great coaches in football, when they would fall behind, people called, hey, you need to throw, or, you know, and they would keep on with whatever their game and let the game come to them. And what I'm saying is they stuck to their game plan.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other people. I don't know if he's on the call right now, but he'll tell you, I don't buy any more shiny objects. I stick to my system. I put on, and I encourage anybody here to do that. If you're comfortable here in this group, put the blinders on and listen and learn and develop your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks for that.
You bet.
All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this call up. We're at about an hour and 13 minutes. Bryan, you guys throw in the chat if you guys appreciate Bryan coming on here and sharing some of the you know, his wins and his strategies and you know, this is somebody, probably a lot of you guys are in the same situation that he was in less than 4 months ago. And he's in a completely different situation now. Every week, I try to encourage you guys to do the things that you got to do to create wins in your business. Sometimes we may not know. For those of you guys that are in our group, that are on this call, and reach out to us, let us know where you are, let us know where you're struggling so that we can help. You got to be the one that takes action. You've seen Bryan take a ton of action here to get to where he is. It becomes life-changing when you go from $2,500 a month to $20,000 a month. It's just like everything changes, right? We've got money to pay all of our bills. We've got extra money. We see the opportunity. We can start to scale our business. The pressure, the stress, a lot of that stuff is removed. Now we can focus on the bigger picture, get out of we can start to afford employees that can get us out of the day-to-day and focus on even bigger wins. And that's why, Bryan's working on a deal that could potentially be $50,000 a month, right? So if this deal closes, hey, maybe this is going to roll out over 6 months to 12 months to be able to get something like that in place. But 6 to 12 months from now, maybe Bryan's gone from $2,500 to, $70,000 a month, and he's on his way to almost a 7-figure agency. You guys have the power to do this. Bryan comes from a background of selling equipment. Like if I had to go and look at all the different backgrounds of people, and I saw that one of them was like this equipment salesman from Texas, and he wouldn't, just on paper, wouldn't come across as like, this is going to be the equipment salesman. It's got to be him, right? Like, so regardless of what your background is, where you come from, what your age is, like you guys, a lot of it is just working through your own mental barriers. I've seen this a lot coaching people now. I don't know how many people have been through various conversations and coaching, probably more than 1,000. And it seems like probably 900 of those people, their issue is it's not a tactical issue. That's what they think they want, but really what they need is they need to work through some mental things, their own mental, luggage or baggage that's holding them down, and we can't see it. That's why it's there. Like if it was easy to solve, we would have solved it already. So it's great, Bryan. I'm so happy for you, man. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. Congratulations. I'm excited to see you in July. Hopefully some of you guys watching, we've got tickets still for our event. We would love to have you. I'd love to have, I 100% I know that there's going to be people that are on this call that decide to come to our event. And then when we're having this conversation in September, October, we're like, well, that event, just like Bryan, that event, I walked in this, I walked out that, and you have to make that decision. I can't make it for you. Sometimes we got to take risks. Sometimes those risks pay off if we go after it and we're persistent. You have to decide what you want the end. You got to get clear on your vision. What do you want the end to look like? Work backwards. Who are the people that are around you? What information did you have to learn? You guys aren't putting yourself in that situation. It can be a harder road to get there. So you guys have an amazing week. Bryan, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in the group. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan.